Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 463. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Are you ready to explore how to unlock your human potential, enhance your creativity, memory, productivity, and well-being with John Diggs, known as the Certified Love Life Coach and Mind Mapping Mentor? Welcome, John.
Hi, thank you so much, Dr. Frances, for having me. It's such a pleasure to meet you and be here.
You're welcome. I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business?
Oh, okay, great. Yes, absolutely. Well, I was born and raised in Los Angeles and luckily, by the grace of God, I earned an athletic scholarship to play football at Washington State University. Go Cougs. And from there, I went on to play several years of professional football and until I got two screws put in my knee, reconstructed knee, and that began my mortgage career in Southern California. Did everything in the mortgage industry, owned my own company in 2003, built one of the largest African-American owned mortgage brokerages in Southern California at the time. Living a millionaire-like lifestyle, had everything, beautiful wife, kids, family, home, all that you can imagine a millionaire would have. And all the way up until the Great Recession, the mortgage meltdown literally took everything, every single thing that I loved and owned away from me. Career, house, wife, family. I literally lost everything in 2008. And was basically humbled and forced to move back to my mother's house. And when I moved back to my mom's, all I took with me was my bicycle and this big box that was full of motivational stuff that I accumulated over the years, books, DVDs, CDs, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Wayne Dyer, Stephen Covey, all of the thought leaders and great authors that we all know about. I've had all of their books. And inside of that box, by the way, this is the beginning of a TEDx talk that I just recently did last year that's on YouTube. This story that I'm briefly covering is in my TEDx talk. But inside of that big box was this book called The Mind Mapping Book by Tony Buzan. And I don't know where I got it. I think a colleague gave it to me or something. And whatever reason, I never read it up until then, but it resonated with me now at that point. So I started reading it and decided to mind map everything that was inside that big box full of all of that motivational stuff. And that was my first real kind of introduction to the power of mind mapping, because I realized mind mapping all of the contents of those books caused the information to resonate much deeper than it did before. Because I wasn't really just kind of just reading it and underlining it. I was actively, what is called actively learning. I was really thinking about what key words or what key phrases from that book that I should add to the mind map. So my interests and intrigue and engagement to what I was learning was so much more profound than ever before by way of mind mapping. Then as I started to mind map in my mom's house, I had all these big poster boards of every book in her house, and living room was full of all of these big poster boards. I noticed another thing about mind mapping is that I started to see connections between all of the different mind mapping boards that I created, between, all of Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, all of these books, Unlimited Power. I started to see connections. Then it dawned on me what they were all basically communicating. And they all were basically communicating that the purpose of our lives is just simply just to love our lives. It's just to be madly in love with it. And all of them had their own perception or approach to love and life, but that was the ultimate goal. It's just, you need to love the experience of life. So that really helped me reset myself to realize that despite the challenges and rock bottom that I was experiencing at the time, that my life was meant to be loved, and I'm in control of that experience and how I need to get back to loving that. Then the biggest distinction that I had with that process was to truly love my life, I must get clear on who I am in this life and what loving life truly means to me. So after going through that mind mapping of all of those books, I spent several months of mind mapping what is now known as my I am mind map, which is strictly just a mind map to get crystal clear about who I am and what's most important to me, my core values, my beliefs as it relates to being healthy, wealthy, successful, and happy. So in this period of time at my mom's house, homeless, jobless, broke, I spent like literally 8 months going through this mind mapping deep dive quest, if you will, into what mind mapping is about as it relates to all of these motivational stuff and immediately transformed my life. I went to one of my loan officers' colleague was at this company and they needed some help with some things. I went over there and immediately about 8 months after this process, I landed a $175,000 a year job. So I went from literally rags to riches in the way. And I say that to say to you and your listeners, Dr. Francis, is that, I know it was because of what mind mapping did to help me get clear on what my life is, who I am. So when I went into that interview and I had this energy and this aura about myself of clarity, of certainty, of authenticity, of integrity, of all of these things that I knew I walked in there with confidence, that, yeah, transformed my life right away. And ever since, this was 2010, 2009, 2010. And ever since then, I've been using mind mapping to build one of the country's largest mortgage software development companies. I've been one of the top mortgage software developers for the last 14 years. And mind mapping has helped me live this amazing life. I reconciled my family, got back to that, lifestyle that I once had before the mortgage meltdown and really loving life fully in so many ways. I mean, truly being healthy, wealthy, successful, and happy. That was my experience of life, all the way up until COVID. Then when COVID hit and we were forced to be quarantined, I thought it was a good time for me then to pivot and start writing books and start really being proactive in sharing the power of mind mapping with others, with hopefully causing and creating positive change in their lives as mind mapping has done, and mine, which ultimately led me to you. So I'm happy.
So talk about who is John Diggs?
John Diggs, great, great question. John Diggs is a spiritual being committed to loving every second of life that he has by committing to doing what's necessary personally to have excellent health, mentally, spiritually, and physically, to have extraordinary wealth as it comes to having an abundance of positive emotions, skills, and freedom, enormous success in relationships, rewards, and results, and being completely happy, meaning that feeling blessed for my past experiences, the good and bads, also feeling grateful for my future, the good and bads that come, all being present in the moment of now. That's who John is. John Diggs is on a deep level. Yeah, on a surface level. That's who I am. Someone who's really passionate about loving life by way of intending to be healthy, wealthy, successful, and happy.
You talked about writing books. Tell us about your books.
Yes. Yeah. Well, all of my books I have seven now. I'm just publishing one tomorrow. I just ordered the author's copy of my most excited one, but all of my books revolve around the power of mind mapping. My first one was Love Life, which was how to mind map your life, get clear, sort out your life. And that one delves into, getting people to take what's in their mind, which swirls around. A lot of people can be overwhelmed and overloaded with just stuff just in their brain, which causes them to, not love life because it's just so much so much pressure and stress that, that book is designed to help them get their thoughts, get their things in a visual format so they actually can see their thought processing and what really are they thinking about and also empowers them to see whatever they're thinking about or whatever they're considering, from different perspectives. And that's the beauty of what mind mapping does, is that it allows you to take what's in here, whatever you're thinking about. You're trying to make a decision, you're trying to deal with a problem, you're trying to deal with an issue in your past, trying to goal set for your future, whatever it is you're trying to think about. Mind mapping will cause you to get it out of your mind. So now you can see it from like a 10,000-foot perspective and see it from different angles, different ways than you would not have been able to think of if you just kept it in your head trying to figure it out. And when I work with my clients and teach them and show them, various things with my books and online courses, I have an online community, mind mapping online community, where I'm supporting people with this process. People are empowered. Their next best step is illuminated. Their decisions are more effective, because now they're like, wait a minute, I know I'm making a good decision about whatever it is I need to do, because I am confident that I've seen it from so many different angles and so many different perspectives. I know that this is the best way to solve this problem because I've considered, things, and I see things now more clearly as far as the components of this problem, and the process of mind mapping allows me to not just get the problem out. And it's so amazing, Dr. Francis, when I'm working with clients. I was just working with one a couple days ago, and very stressed and very intense, and they was very overwhelmed by the problem. But when I started walking them through how to mind map that problem, the emotion left. They became more calm because the problem was no longer inside of them. It was now out there. It was now out on the map. So it kind of released the attachment that problem had, that angst of the problem. So now they were in a better mental capacity to now look at the problem, because it wasn't all that emotional, that was, surrounding the problem at first. So those are some of the powerful things that a lot of my books share. I got Blessed and Grateful. My two latest ones, which I'm most excited about, are my books on, it's called Mapping Your College Years. It's strictly a mind mapping book for college students to help them get clear on who they are and help them set boundaries for themselves by way of getting absolutely certain about what they want to achieve in college and after college. Then I have one called What's Inside Your Big Ass Box, which is a spinoff from my TEDx talk. Because after I did my TEDx talk, it talks about that big box that I took to my mom's house. I realized after the TEDx talk that people may not have a big box like I did that to sort, but they do have a big brain that they should sort. And that process is still the same. So that's why, I wrote that book. And the whole intent of that book is to get people to realize that it's one thing to think outside of the box, which is ultimately, telling you to think outside of your current belief systems, think outside of your limitations. But if you truly learn how to practice mapping or mind mapping, you'll learn how to live outside of the box, where you're living in a state of everything is possible. There are no limits there to how you live. So that book is designed for that purpose. And the one that I'm publishing and releasing tomorrow is called Big Play Power, which is strictly showing student athletes, football playing student athletes, how to mind map to get not just clear on who they are, but to mind map their most biggest play that they can make, the biggest game they can have, the biggest season they can have, just really get clear on who they are as it relates as not just a student, but also as a football playing athlete. What are truly your goals? Let's start visualizing that. Let's start clearing that out. And I asked them, if you never really articulate and define the biggest play that you can ever make playing the game that you love, how do you ever expect to achieve it, or experience it? So those are some of the key things that my books are covering, but they're all centered around, by the way, what I call mappineering. And this is probably very valuable for you and your listeners as well. Most people that have heard of mind mapping and use mind mapping, they use it in basically three ways. It's for project management. Mind mapping is a great project management tool. It's also a great note-taking tool, as well as a great brainstorming tool. But in my using mind mapping for 15 years or so now and meeting people all over the world who are mind mappers, I found out that I am the only one that's actually using mind mapping as a personal development tool for somebody to use to enhance their life for optimal performance and optimal living, peak performance kind of stuff. So decided to coin the phrase mapineering, engineering beautiful mind maps to love life more, to kind of give my nuance to the style, my style of how I mind map versus those that are mind mappers, which are still relatively new in this country. Most people aren't mind mappers. The guy who invented the coined the phrase mind mapping, Tony Buzan, 70-year-old English educator who developed mind mapping since the 70s. He was a British guy and he did a lot of work more in Europe and some parts of Asia. And before he had a chance to really impact our country, he passed away in 2018. So he never really, I believe, got a chance to really impact our country like he wanted to. And those of us in our country that know it are pretty much Ivy League schools. All Fortune 500 companies are using mind mapping at various levels. But as far as a common tool for us people, especially people of color, when they're having something to sort out or dealing with some kind of mental challenge or dealing with something, most people never think about this powerful tool as an option to help them, which is why I'm so passionate and inspired to, howl at the moon and tell everybody, hey, if you're dealing with something, some mental challenges, know that this tool is available for you that can really help you sort it out efficiently and effectively so you can get back to what? Loving your life more. So yeah.
John, I can definitely hear your passion. I want to step back a minute.
Hmm.
You said you have 7 books,
I do.
releasing one tomorrow,
Yes.
which tomorrow, when this interview airs, is going to be, it's already out. So I just
Yep.
want the audience to know that. How can they purchase your books?
Well, I have an author's page on Amazon.com. They can definitely go to johndiggs.com. And just for your listeners on this call, I have a designated page, johndiggs.com/Black Entrepreneur Experience is where all of your listeners can go to get some information, not just about myself, but probably most importantly, and for all of your listeners that are interested in learning more about mind mapping and how they can utilize this tool, I highly recommend they start with developing their own I am mind map first. And I have some courses, I have a book on this, I have curriculums on this to show people exactly how to really get clear on what's most important to you, not from a surface level, from a really deep level, like, what does having excellent health mentally, spiritually, and physically mean to you? It may mean different something to me, if it's going to mean something different to your sister, your kids. Everybody's going to have a different approach to that, and what that means to them. But I highly encourage everyone to get really clear on developing their I am mind map because it'll be so empowering and liberating and inspiring for them to achieve all of their dreams, to really get clear. This is who I am in the world. And I know I can do it because I'm clear on who I am. So, and all of that will be on johndiggs.com/Black Entrepreneur Experience.
Who is your ideal client?
Ideal client would be someone that is really passionate about maximizing every second of life that they're living. I really want to fully love my life. And I'm open to learning perspectives, ways, tools that can help me achieve that goal, of just being in love with this life, and it's all different from all of us. We don't all have to be millionaires to love life. If you're a teacher, or you're first responder, there are ways where you can truly be passionately and madly in love with what you do. And those would be my ideal client because I think that they will have the most and the biggest impact with creating their own I am mind map. It would really 10x everything that they're currently doing. I mean, if you can just imagine creating this I am mind map that has where you spend time really brainstorming what I am healthy, wealthy, successful, and happy means to you, and taking time, weeks, months, years of just really mentally grappling with what truly does these components mean in your life. When you're done with that process and you're able to step back and see all of it on one piece of paper or in one snapshot, it's like it's really inspiring. It's really motivating. It's really like a big aha moment. Like, wow, these are truly the key components of what's most important to me, not what my environment told me, not what society told me how I should love life, not what my parents suggested I should do to love my life. This is truly what my life is about. It's like a GPS to your life. It's like a compass or like the Ten Commandments, if you will. This is my constitution. This is my personal constitution on what my life is going to be about. Most people, it's surprising a lot of people that never really got clear, on and made that conscious decision on who I am. This is who I am. And I find that those of us who have not made that distinction and that commitment struggle longer in pain, have more difficulty when life throws us curveballs or challenges. When, if someone passes away or you get divorced or you get fired or you're dealing with some kind of calamity, like COVID or quarantine. A lot of people were freaking out in quarantine because they were forced to actually stay home and get to know themselves, or get clear or didn't have all of those distractions. And a lot of people didn't do too well in that because of not having that connection with that their selves and that inner voice. And an ideal client, to answer your question directly, would be someone who's passionate about learning life, loving life, and getting clear on who they are and what loving life means to them.
And something you said, John, which is very true when you talked about the pandemic and being in quarantine, and a lot of individuals not only did not want to deal with who they are
Mm-hmm.
and at that man or woman in the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
it also caused a lot of stress and frustration around you now having to be quarantined in a
Mm-hmm.
house with people that you may not like or love.
Right.
So you're taking the veil off of that too.
Yeah.
And so at that moment, people didn't have anywhere to run or hide. And so that caused a lot of instability and friction and divorce. But we do want to
Mm-hmm.
not talk all gloom and doom. Some
Yeah.
people actually came closer because they did take that time to see what was broken and fragmented, and
Yeah.
they put those pieces together. So,
Yeah, and that's great. You're spot on with that. And I think a lot of people got aware of the impact that distractions had in their lives that they no longer could use to deal with life. A lot of people had that distraction of going here and going there and doing here and doing this and doing social to avoid dealing with certain internal things. Now they didn't have that distraction and now they're forced to deal with it. In all transparency, my relationship, marriage dissolved because of that. My partner, she lived in distraction. And despite my efforts to try to help her get clear and comfortable with who she was, which taught me that a lot of people are really afraid to look at themselves, deal with some of those things. And she was one of those. And in that distraction that we used to have, going to Vegas, hanging out, we couldn't do all the time. And she really had some issues with that. But by way of me having the mind mapping experience and I am experience, I took it as an opportunity again, like I mentioned, to pivot and start writing books, and start, a new career for myself. And I think it was just because of that clarity of who I am, it didn't negatively impact me like it did to others who wasn't really clear on who they are and what they wanted most out of life.
how long does it take? And is it based on the individual? If you're doing an I am mapping, how long does that take for someone?
To be honest, it never stops. It's forever dynamic because life is always changing. You're always changing. Change is constant. So, my I am mind map has evolved, almost weekly, if not monthly, for the last 14 years. As new ideas come and new things resonate with me, a lot of the core components, health, wealth, success, and happiness, a lot of those stay the same. But as things change and evolve, my approach to those things and those strategies on how to achieve successful relationships, or what does really having a successful social relationship mean, professional relationship, personal relationship, as those things kind of change, I always go back to my I am mind map and dig deeper into it. What does that truly mean to me? And it always evolves. So it's not something you do to thinking that it's going to be completed. It's something that you use to dynamically evolve as you evolve, to help you stay focused in going in the direction you want to go in your life. It's really like a GPS. A lot of people seem like they live life, and don't really have a destination. They just kind of bouncing from one thing to another, not knowing where they're going and what's most important to them. And having that I am mind map is almost like, yeah, you're just punching in a GPS, or at least looking at your map, or like, okay, this is where I'm heading. And that can change, as kids leave for go to college, like we just talked about, career changes, relationship changes, either old ones or new ones come in your life, old ones leave, and all of these dynamics. So when I deal with these life experiences, I deal with them in a different way, because I know my I am mind map is the core on what I need to reference to know where I'm heading, if you will. So it's never a completed project, but it is a very useful aid and tool to help you stay clear on what's most important to you, to live and love your best life.
So you've had many clients over the years, and
Mhm,
without divulging any information that you cannot divulge,
mhm.
share one of your greatest success stories that you have really impacted someone's life.
Ooh, great question. I love it. The one that comes to mind is I had a friend of mine call me because she was fearing that her son was contemplating suicide, and wanted me to see if I can talk to him. Didn't know about the mind mapping component of it, but she just knew that he had kind of looked up to me as a professional athlete, businessman, and knew I could possibly influence her son to avoid that experience. And it was great conversation, because I actually had him put his name in the middle of the page and I told him the mind map. Let's start with your first mind mapping topic, subtopic. And I said, on this topic, I want you to just write down the names of all of the people that you love. Just put that down. So he just started writing down his mom, sisters, and all of this stuff, and this, that, and the other. And I said, great, let's spend more time. I know you love more people than that, and to understand it, it's not that love like mom. I know you got some friends that you'll feel sad. Who would you feel sad if they passed away? If you felt sad that they passed away, then on some level you love them. So let's add them to the map. So they add that to the map. So on the other side, I said, all right, good. That's a good exercise. On this side, now let's write down who loves you. All of the people that love you. This is emotional, because it was an emotional experience dealing with this client. And yeah, he spent the same equal amount of time just writing down all of the people that he knew loved him. And he started to get emotional. I said, well, think about it. How would you feel if all of these people that you see on your map was forever damaged and in pain because you took your life? It just, it just blew him away. And that was the first time I dealt with something so powerful like that. But that's the experience that I had that resonated with me, to guide him through to kind of get that experience. Because I think that most people that are in that suicidal state, it's an ultimate selfishness. They only think about themselves. So I realized that I thought that it would be very powerful to get him clear on thinking outside of himself and all of those people that he does love and knows that he loves him and how he would impact their lives if he did that. And yeah, so that was an amazing experience. And he and I are great friends, and he mind maps all the time and shares his mind maps with me. And yeah, he's going to be one of my leaders on this new project that I have going on. And so yeah, that was an experience that I will never forget, and I will always use for any circumstance that I'm in like that because it really worked well for him.
Wow, thank you for being so authentic,
Yeah.
John. And in reference to that, even how the boldness, you went straight to the subject, opposed to a lot of times parents want you to not get to the root of it and beat
Mm,
around the bush. But the fact that you actually said the word
mhm.
suicide
Yeah.
and right there, thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And
You're
I
welcome.
am, and I just, that young man, I can just imagine the impact that how he, and I don't know the project that you're working on, but
Hmm.
I can just sense he can touch so many more lives
Absolutely.
because it's so many more people that
Hmm.
are contemplating, unfortunately, that suicide ideation
Yeah.
and just him being a more younger protege,
Yes.
touching
Yes.
his generation and that other generations. That's very powerful. The
Yes.
impact
Thank
and
you.
what,
Indeed.
yeah, what
Indeed.
you guys are doing.
And he's insisting on being a part of my project. He's like, man, I want to help. I want to get involved in that project we're working on is my big play power for student athletes.
Yeah,
Because a lot of student athletes, go through a lot of not just academic pressures and stress, but also performance pressures and stress on the field, go through a lot of psychological issues if they have injuries and can't perform. And probably the biggest one that's not spoken of like it should be is when they realize that they're no longer going to play the game again. That is a big psychological,
that's
identity shift that a lot of athletes have there where I'm not saying suicide is thought, but I could see it being a gateway to that of, I lost my identity. I've been playing this sport since I've been 7 years old, and it's my first love. We had ups, downs, goods, bads, success. I was identified as a football player. Now I'll never wear a helmet again. A lot of athletes have a lot of issues with transitioning from that, and he's going to be one of my guys that's going to be, one of those thought leaders and speaker and speaking to that, of redefining yourself, creating your I am mind map. Now that you're a new person with a new identity, no longer a football player, now you're what? Let's clear that out. Let's sift that out and empower you around this new identity that you need to create.
and so it's like I'm sensing when the lights go out, the spotlight, when the spotlight goes out. And yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
And even when you're dealing with it, and depending on the level, you could
Mhm.
imagine like if you're playing college ball, that's one thing. If you make it to the NBA or NFL
Yeah.
or on that stage, that's a whole nother level.
Yeah.
And when those lights go out,
Yeah.
dealing with that.
I wish they would do some kind of story, a big 30 for 30 ESPN or something, because it really is a major, major issue of all sports. When that person realizes that that game is over, a lot of marriages are broken up because now they're forced to have to be with each other when in season he's always gone and focused on other things. He or she's always gone on, doing other things, but now the game is over. Now they're home every day. And the guy's like, wait a minute, who are you? And she's like, well, who are you? Well, I was a football player, and now I'm a retired guy. I don't like you like this, you know?
And John, that's in a lot of areas.
Yes.
A lot of areas when you think about singers and
Hmm.
performers and
Hmm.
athlete. I'm not just athletes, you said athletes. I'm talking about like Hollywood stars.
Yep.
Also, I find it's interesting the synergy because coaching around I did a course around unpack what's eating you so you could stop eating it.
Oh, nice. I
And
love that.
it's helping women. And what I find is when you talk about that mind mapping, is when the kids leave
Yes.
and the foundation of that family,
Empty nesters.
husband and wife, right? It's not there. I marvel at couples when I see them that they genuinely love
Hmm.
but like each other.
Right. Best friends. Yeah.
That they really, and that's what I'm not sensing, that
Mhm.
you really like. I don't see a lot of marriages where
Right.
they really enjoy being around each other.
Right.
And that's when all of this busyness,
Hmm. Distractions. Yep.
distractions is gone. And now you got to sit with who you really are.
Right.
And like you said, many of us, we don't want to look at that man or woman in the mirror.
Yeah. And that's where, again, where I find most people are really enjoying and finding this I am mind mapping process that I created through these courses and the like, so powerful because despite where you are in your life, you should get clearer on who you are in your life. So when things happen and things change, you can authentically stand in this space and be at peace with that space and know what your next move is for your greater happiness, whether it's being an empty nester, whether it's becoming a widow, whether it's having to be quarantined, wherever that may be, being in that space of this is who I am really causes you and empowers you to maximize that experience versus, be limited and have it be a negative experience, which is why, again, so many people are loving this I am process. I am mind map process that I created. So yeah, it's very exciting. And again, I hope your listeners, if they are interested, they will go to johndiggs.com/, Black Entrepreneur Experience because it'll have a lot of information on where they could take some very valuable steps in that direction.
Thank you for that. John, I want you to have a monologue. I want you to name this person, living or not.
Hmm.
It impacted your life so much. Who is that person and what are you saying to that person?
Woo. God, there's so many people, powerful people. I've had so many awesome, awesome mentors that I can answer this question by, but I have to talk about my dad. My dad. I'm the second, John Diggs the second, and throughout my parents divorced when I was 2 years old, but I never lived with my father, but I was raised in the same neighborhood my father was raised in. And throughout my life, I would always meet a lot of people that met my dad and would always glorify my father. Your dad is such an awesome man. John Diggs, oh, he's just a great guy. John Diggs, man, I love your dad and all of this stuff. And because of that, I've always had this feeling that my dad, was such an awesome man that I have to be awesome. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to do things to make disappoint my father. So as a child and as an adult, for the most part, I would always base my decisions on, pleasing my father or not, which kept me out of a lot of trouble when I was a kid. Because I was like, heck, no, I can't do that. I can't get caught doing something like that. What my dad think? Even though I never lived with my dad, the times he would see me, he would always impart with knowledge. He would always leave nuggets and jewels. And I remember one time, then this was the very first book I read. My dad was a top salesman, insurance salesman, real estate guy. He's always been this self-employed entrepreneur, successful guy. And I remember he was taking me home one day and he was pumping gas. And I remember looking in between his briefcase that sat in between our seats. And there was a book in there and it was Think and Grow Rich. And I had to be maybe 10 or 12 or something. And I was looked at it and I was like, you know what? This is my book my dad's reading. And I took that book from my dad, right? And he never asked me for it, but he never asked back. But as I look back at it now, every time I saw him, he would ask me questions about the book. And I realized what leadership and mentorship that was of for my father. He had to know I took it. But instead of asking for it back, he was asking me questions to make sure I was reading it. And man, that transformed my life. And so I owe a lot to my father. We had some ups and downs in our relationship, but I'm so grateful that even now, the last 4 years as grown men, he's still always dropping that ton. He's my confidant, he's my mentor and we talk all the time and he's always, and positive and spinning life forward for me and let me know his favorite mantra, by the way, is I'm determined to show people what sexy looks like at 100. That's that's his thing. He said, I'm gonna let everybody know what sexy look like as 100. He always has these one-liners. So I would say my father has had the greatest and longest impact. But again, that's not to disrespect or disregard all of the other mentors. I had some very powerful guys very, very powerful guys come in my life and transform my life in so many ways. I've been very lucky to have, one of the top mortgage guys in our country's history been a friend of mine, Paul Wiley, who's billionaire guy that just loves me like his son and gives me advice. And Dr. Ron Holman, he used to own the largest privately owned mental health insurance company in the country. And he has served as more of my spiritual leader, where getting me clear on who I am and getting me clear on my spiritual side of myself. And I got to mention Joe Stump, who was one of my business mentors, who really got me into being more of a servant, super servant to people in the world versus being a salesman. Being a servant, look to serve more than sell. And so though I had to bring up those guys, those are like the four top people, that really impacted my life, in very powerful ways. And I'm forever grateful for them. Outside of some great coaches, but those are my life coaches that I have to acknowledge always as really powerfully impacted my life and helping me become who I am today.
John, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
One question I would ask myself if I was interviewing myself, I would ask myself would be, God, Lee, that's a great question. What is your vision for your Mapineering project? And my vision for my Mapineering project is to have a movement of people of color that are supporting each other in utilizing like mind mapping to help each other live their best lives. A national movement is what I would like to have, which is why I created my online community, and that's been growing and thriving, called Mapineerville.com, to have a bunch of people in there really just passionate and really just actively supporting each other and loving this experience of life we have. We're only here for a hot second. I know we're talking about living 90s and 100 years would be ideal, but it's not typical or the norm. But if you look at 90 years, it's really a blip in when you look at how old this earth is. I was just talking to my kids about this, Dr. Francis. I was like, we was watching Jurassic Park or something. I was like, girls, do you realize that dinosaurs walked this planet, for they say more than 25 million years? They were dinosaurs that was living on this earth for 25 plus million years. Dinosaurs walked this earth. And I said, what's even more interesting is that was like 25 million plus years ago. This earth is very, very old. Jesus was over 2,000 years ago. Jesus walked it. This earth is very, very old. And for us to only live, hopefully 70, 80, 90 years, we're here for a very short period of time. Why not love every second we have of it? Yeah. Why not love every second we have of it? So I'm hopeful to touch, move, and inspire people that are passionate like I am about this to support each other inside of mapineerville.com or just wherever, to where people can really support each other at loving every second of this brief moment we have on earth. And that would be the answer to the question that I would ask myself on what would be the vision of this mapineering project that I am excited about.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Rapid Round of Fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to give me very quick answers.
Got it.
If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass.
Okay.
Are you ready for the...
I am ready.
Okay. What is your favorite comfort food?
Pizza.
The last movie you saw?
The Book of Clarence.
Your ideal car?
Tesla.
You relax doing what?
Reading, meditating.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Chris Brown, Beyond.
Your favorite dance song?
Ooh, that would be Superman by DJ Ricky Campanelli. I am a Latin social dancer. So that's a salsa song.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Salads.
Workout or hit the couch?
Workout all day.
John Diggs, thank you so much for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way that they can reach you and to do business with you. Feel free to leave all your social media handles.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, well, johndiggs.com, johndiggs.com/Black Entrepreneur Experience. I could be reached on all the social medias. I would prefer have everybody say hi to me inside of mapineerville.com. That's my online community full of active, like-minded people that are truly committed to engineering beautiful mind maps to love life more. Yeah, and I'm available in everywhere on all of the social medias, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Please feel free to reach out to me with any mind mapping questions, or if I can support you in any way to help you love and live your best life. I'm totally here for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. That's a wrap.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.